Okay, I'm McVay. This is just after Thanksgiving in the year 2020. This reminds me of asking Jeremy to do this same thing and record his grandfather, my father, and my father tell about his life, which Jeremy recorded and put it on YouTube. If anybody wants to look at it, it's there. All kinds of interesting facts, some things of which, okay, nobody knew. But anyway, I just want to give you a little bit of history of my life, and this is for you too, Bonnie, just some of the things you don't know about me. Anyway, I was born, okay, in New London, Connecticut in 1945 when my father was stationed down there during the war. Fortunately, I was born July 30th, towards the end of the war. The war in Japan ended in August of 1945. So we lived down there at Fort Trumbull, okay, in New London, Connecticut. And my father, being the character that he is, was given $300 to buy a suit, okay, for as an officer. He was in the Merchant Marine training navigators to navigate the Victory ships across the Atlantic. Well, instead of spending the $300 on a officer's uniform like he was supposed to, okay, he spent it on a boat instead. And then there was another officer who was just about his size and everything, and so they would share the uniform. So then my father got a 19-foot Cape Cod knockabout, of which I started sailing when I was about minus several months, riding in Mama's stomach down there in Little Narragansett Bay in Paquonic Bridge in that area. So then from there, when the war ended, my father didn't leave right away, okay? They asked him to stay on and to teach at the Coast Guard Academy. But he was an optometrist and went back and opened up a practice in East Providence, Rhode Island. We bought a house on Narragansett Terrace on Bullocks Point Avenue, and we moved in 1947. Now, unfortunately, a whole bunch of optometrists got out of the war, opened up their practice at the same time, and my poor father only earned $1,400 his first year in practice and didn't feel he could afford the boat, okay, plus the house, plus an office. So what's the practical answer? To move his 2 children and wife into the back of the office instead of giving up the boat. So anyway, so we lived there in the back of my father's office, and anytime Grandpa had a patient, okay, we were told to be quiet, don't make too much noise. And we lived there, still sailing the 19-footer. And then my father and his brother, Uncle Howie, had bought about a 33-footer or so that they shared together. But then when Uncle Howie had to go to Korea in the armed forces, then they sold her, and my father bought a 28-foot sloop that we kept at the Barrington Yacht Club. And we sailed that for quite a few years, lived in the back of the office until 1954. And my father had a busy year in 1953-54. He bought a 35-foot wooden sloop, a Sparkman Stevens design Weekender in the winter of 53, I think it was. Then he also bought a house at 85 Riverside Drive, a very nice house, same year. And that was an eventful year because not long after we moved into the house was Hurricane Carol came through the New England area, took the 35-footer, and she dragged her mooring and went up and knocked down the south wall of the ship's door in Barrington, and it was almost destroyed. Our house survived pretty well without a problem. It was on the terrace, but it was high enough so it wasn't affected by the hurricane. So from there, okay, after the hurricane, Uncle Howie came by. I had always wanted a boat of my own. He came by with a 13-foot wooden catboat called a wood pussy. Came by, and he was in the insurance business, and it was considered a total loss because the mast was broken and it had a cracked plank and a few other things wrong with it. So he offered to sell it to me for $25, and the old Scotsman had saved up, $25. So I had my first boat at age 9, okay, in 1954. So that little boat, okay, the next summer I was only allowed to sail at a certain area of Narragansett Bay, up at Narragansett Bay. I couldn't sail it anywhere, anything beyond Connecticut Point, but had a wonderful time, sailing it around in upper Narragansett Bay and even taking my friends out. So my next step, boat-wise, okay, is I wanted a racing boat, an International 110. And hey, I'm only a kid, but I once again saved up my money, worked hard, mowing lawns, shoveling snow. Okay, the other thing I did at that age, at 14, was that I had a quahog skiff, and with a 4.7 horsepower Champion outboard, and I would go down just south of Connecticut Point where you could quahog, and I got these quahogs and I sold them to the neighbors. I gave them an option if they wanted to be opened or wanted to just have the cherry stones. I gave them the options, and I made some pretty good money out of that. So then at the end of the summer, I sold the quahog skiff. In fact, I made national news in the process of selling it because I had found this quahog skiff on the beach and asked the owner of the property if I could have it. It was worn out. It was leaky. It had been used for years, and the wood where somebody was standing quahogging had actually worn down. So the owner of the property gave it to me, and I took it back and I caulked it, used a little fiberglass on it, and got it so it didn't leak too badly, and got the 4.7 horsepower outboard for it. But when it came time to sell this piece of junk, okay, then we were joking around the dining room table about how to advertise it, and we put it in the newspaper as let's see, I forget the exact words: worn out outboard, rusty tongs, and I forget exactly.
Leaky skiff.
And a leaky skiff, okay? Now, I'm only asking $40 for this thing, and got all kinds of responses on it. So this guy comes up, and let's see, Associated Press, I think it was, that contacted me and asked me whether or not I had sold it or not. They saw the ad in the local newspaper. And so anyway, I said I was successful and everything. In the old days in the newspaper, they used to have these little spots here and there about cute little stories. And my understanding is that it went nationally because a few people would mail me the little thing. It came in. So my first introduction into national fame. So after selling the wood pussy for $400, the quahog skiff and outboard and rusty tongs for $40, I'd saved up a little more, and I had $500. But there were no International 110s anywhere near that price. They were going for at least $700 here in the New England area, usually at least $1,000. And keep in mind, this is back in 1960, and a $500 was like $5,000 now in 2020. So, but my soon-to-be brother-in-law, Bob Peck, and my sister, and I found one in Rye, New York, I believe it was, for only $500. So, you know, I figured, hey, I don't care how bad it is, okay, we'll go get it, and we did. Okay, as it turns out, the strange thing is, it was owned by Henry Villard, a very wealthy man who owned, the Villard family owns a lot of Martha's Vineyard, and it had been his son's. And we had no idea until we signed the papers there that it was his, and because we bought it through a yacht broker. So I brought it back and worked on it all, you know, all that winter, and fixed it up and everything, and then was ready to race it the next summer. And I had old sails, I had a very limited budget, and we did all right, okay? At that time, International 110s were a big deal on Narragansett Bay. They were considered to be the hottest racing class, okay, at that time. And if you won there in the 110s, you were considered to be, you know, a top-notch sailor. So anyway, I did all right that first summer, learning, teaching my crew how to handle the spinnaker and things like that. So from there, they asked me to be the sailing instructor at Barrington Yacht Club, which Steve Gladding and I, the first year, okay, went over there and I taught sailing at Barrington Yacht Club. So when you're teaching sailing 5 days a week and you're racing, you know, weekends and things, you get better and better at this.